Welcome to this People and Purpose video. It is my absolute pleasure today to introduce you to Ronke Lawal, who is the founder and director of Ariatu PR, and she's an established communication specialist. Ronke, welcome.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you very much for speaking with us, because I think that your journey into your current position is a fascinating one, and I'm sure that others will be interested in hearing about it. So could I just ask you to tell us a little bit about your career so far and your leadership journey?
Gosh, it's been a long one, it feels like. So I came out of university with a degree in international business economics, and I started working initially in the government, Department of Trade and Industry and the Insolvency Service. So I worked there for about a year, and that was in the midst of looking for a proper job, so a proper graduate job. But I was really lucky to get into the positions that I had. I did a lot of admin, and it was a great way of kind of introducing me to the world of work, and I aligned myself with the managers and getting to know how they led people. So I was always really friendly. I knew from an early stage in my career that I wanted to be in a position of leadership or management. So whilst some of the graduates might have been a bit shy or coy, I knew I'd have to kind of take control of my network if I were to get to where I really wanted to get to.
Right.
So I was in government for about a year, and then I started working for a health and fitness company, and I had a management position. How old was I? I was 22, really young actually.
Yeah.
I was doing personnel and finance management, and it was great. I had my own little office. It was great salary. I mean, it wasn't quite the sector that I was aiming for. I'd always wanted to get into kind of international business or finance, so something like investment banking or the stock exchange. But I was really blessed. I was still really lucky to get into that role. And I was there for 2 years. But by the end of those 2 years, I realized it wasn't quite working for me. I wasn't quite kind of fulfilling my purpose. I don't know if that makes sense, because I was still really quite young. And at that age, I should have really just been focusing on making money and just living my life. But I don't know. I just thought it was a greater calling. There was more to it.
Yeah.
So then I decided to become self-employed. And I started my business, which is now Ariatu PR. But I started it under a different banner, a different brand name at that time. And it was basically a capacity building, business development, communications company, where I'd work with a lot of small business owners on their communications and their business development. In the midst of that, so within 5 years, how old was I? 27, by 28. So that was 5 years or so of being self-employed. I kind of realized again, okay, I need to find something else. Like I need to kind of, how can I put it, move up a virtual career ladder. Given that I was working for myself, where else could I go? And I spotted this opportunity to be the chief executive of the Islington Chamber of Commerce. Now, bearing in mind, again, I'm relatively young, didn't really know much about chambers of commerce. The job title itself, CEO, was a big job title for somebody, I shouldn't put it like this, but somebody so small, I should say. I mean, realistically, I kind of am small. But I went for it because the job spec was very much about engaging with the business community, communications, marketing, and that leadership word, again. And as I said earlier, I've always seen myself in a position of kind of influence and kind of using my knowledge to kind of guide people. So it's not necessarily about being the boss, but it is about directing people in the right way and using my skills in the right way. And I think that's why leadership to me is so important. So I went for that. And it was a bit of a long process, but I got the job, and I think I made history of some sort because I was very young. And I was at the Chamber of Commerce for 3 years as a CEO, just under 3 years. And it was an amazing, life-changing experience. And I'll always be grateful for that experience. I think working with a board of directors, working with all those members of the chamber, working with the small businesses, the local authority in Islington and in Camden eventually when we expanded, it was just amazing. I thought, this is right up my street, up until I think year 3, where again I started to say, okay, what next? Because I guess as you're getting from my dialogue now, I'm quite driven. Okay, so what next?
Absolutely.
And I realized at the time that in order for me to really kind of get back on track and fulfill my purpose, I had to go back to being self-employed, and I had to use the skills I'd learned as a CEO to test myself again. So it was another bit of I think maybe it's my entrepreneurial spirit. It was a risk, and it was a measured risk though. So throughout my career, I've always been very measured. So even though I had my business, and I went back into employment, then I went back into self-employment. I feel like I gave everything the time it needed to kind of develop and grow. I didn't just jump here and there and everywhere. And then I started Ariete PR, which has been going. So it was basically a rebrand of the business I had before I joined the Chamber of Commerce. So I just rebranded, gave it a new logo and a new name. And so here I am, and it's been about 2 years or a year and a half since the rebrand, and it's been phenomenal. And a lot of the skills I learned about business leadership in the Chamber of Commerce, I've been able to impact through my PR and communications business.
No, of course, yes. It's quite a spectacular journey, and I think there's plenty of other people who in their early 20s might be looking at you thinking, wow, if only I had, the skill or the guts or the drive to make that happen. So if you were to share some key learnings with others, particularly women in leadership, both from being self-employed and then also leading an organization that's such an important one in terms of the local business community.
Yes, I think it's really important to be willing to push yourself and push your boundaries. I think fear quite often stops us, particularly as women, from kind of going for those big jobs, those big contracts, for even being self-employed. And I think I mentioned, I know even when I said, oh, I was a small person going for a big job, even that, really I shouldn't have said that, because obviously being hired by the president of the chamber at the time and the board of directors shows and reflected that I had the skills and the mindset to do great things, but it's that negative self-talk sometimes that can get in our own way. But it's really important to me to have like myself as a self-coach, because I've been lucky. I've had some mentors, possibly kind of later in my career. Probably should have had mentors earlier. I've had mentors, but I found that when it came down to, no matter what my mentors told me, no matter what, my social circle told me, I had to believe in myself. So I had to kind of coach myself fundamentally. So I had I had a great network, but fundamentally everything I did had to come down to my own courage and sense of purpose. So that's really, really important for anyone who's, either considering changing their career or kind of looking to get a promotion in their current career or starting a new business. You have to work on yourself and your self-belief and truly believe that you can do it. And then obviously have the outside circle who can support you and encourage you to get to where you need to go. And it's really, really important.
So it's a lovely combination of the inside work and the outside work in that sense, isn't it?
Definitely.
Excellent. And then having been the chief exec of the Islington Chamber of Commerce, which is a very big job, it's a very impactful role, that set you up really well to then go back into your own business around PR and communication. So tell us a little bit about what you do as part of Ariete, and then I'll ask you a few questions about your advice for both leaders but also business owners around communication.
So I work with lots of startups, small businesses and entrepreneurs, work on their PR and marketing campaigns. So I do a lot of press engagement, media engagement, lots of pitching to journalists, a lot of digital strategy. So digital PR strategy, working with social media, writing lots of press releases, content marketing. So either encouraging my clients to write articles, guest articles for publications, or writing articles, not necessarily on their behalf, but in a way that can engage the press so that they will talk about my client. So there's a lot of media engagement, as well as a lot of kind of online and social media engagement, and preparing my clients for public speaking, experiential marketing, going out to events, and where they might need some help in terms of looking for opportunities to publicize and promote their businesses. I work on strategy. So I might not necessarily get my hands dirty and go out there and, I don't know, stand on the street corner and hand out flyers, but I will tell them that they need to print flyers or, do an advertising campaign or something like that. But I think what's really important to know is being in PR as a kind of as a minority in quite a lot of aspects. So I'm relatively young. I'm from I'm a black British British publicist. I'm a woman as well in business. So I've got quite a few, and it's the same when I was at CEO role at Chamber of Commerce, got quite a few boxes by my name, but quite unusual, and it can be tough at times, especially unpacking the media narrative. Sometimes, I mean, I think most people know the absolutely fabulous kind of lifestyle. I don't know if anybody's watched that. Hopefully, some of the people who'll be watching this know what I'm talking about. That whole fabulous lifestyle of a PR is not necessarily accurate. It can be. It's not necessarily accurate, but it is very much about the nepotism and who people know in PR. And I'm just all about pitching good stories. Sometimes I do know, however, some journalists work with who they know, makes life easier for some publicists. So I'm really about building relationships, and I found that using social media and communicating in a certain manner has allowed me to break certain barriers and boundaries and change certain perceptions. So it's been an interesting journey, actually, but I've enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed it. I might be ready for my next journey soon, but we'll talk about that later.
You certainly, when you talk about it, you just look so engaged and so lit up by it. It's fabulous. It's always lovely to see. So beyond obviously talking to you and commissioning your services, if you had to give some key pointers to entrepreneurs or to leaders around how they might want to communicate about their brand, communicate about the purpose or the strategy of their business, communicate about their product or service, or even communicate with their people, what would be some of your key messages or key guidelines that you'd want to share?
So first of all, it's really important to identify your ethos. So who are you? What is your brand about? And really stand by it. If you're confident about your personal brand and your business brand, the message is really clear when you're sharing it to the world and to members of the public or the media, the press, whoever, your clients, customer base. But you've got to really get that message clear in yourself before you can even start to promote it to others. I definitely say you have to package yourself in a way that you want the world to see you. So be who you want to see. Now, you can be a trainer wearing, denim wearing, startup entrepreneur, but a confident one at that. Just go out. You don't have to wear a suit every day to be taken seriously, I personally believe, in the business world, because there's so many amazing entrepreneurs who are doing amazing things and they wear flip-flops and shorts. But I do believe if you're going to do that, then you have to stand by it with confidence and vigor. You can't kind of be wishy-washy, because the world likes to pick holes and find fault, and if you're not secure in your own brand awareness and your own ethos, then it's so easy for people to just shake you off your guard, take you off your guard and take you off route. I'd say you have to also be what you want to see on all of your media channels. So when I say media channels, I don't even just mean kind of getting on to the traditional press, TV, radio. I mean social media. So if you are a business leader, a CEO, MD, or an employee, but you're on social media kind of trolling people, or you're sharing images that are inappropriate, and you're not really being a good representative of your brand or a brand ambassador, that can have a really major impact. And I think what I've found when I've engaged with leaders, business leaders and business owners, is they become fearful of social media purely because of the fear of, oh, what can I say? Am I going to offend people? You can still have your political opinions, your religious opinions, your opinions about the world, but you can do it without being offensive. You can do it without kind of, being rude necessarily. You can just share things and share the things that make you passionate without kind of having to pick and poke at other people. So I definitely say get involved with technology, get involved with social media. It's an amazing landscape to promote your brand, to promote your business, but just be wise when you're sharing. Be wise with what you're saying online. Have fun. The most interesting entrepreneurs and business leaders also have fun. And we see that with some of the leaders of the world. President of the United States, he has a Twitter account. He doesn't always just tweet about politics. Sometimes he'll tweet about music. You can still have fun, but that's, again, it comes down to your brand identity and how you want people to identify with you. So who are the people who are your audience? Who are the people you're trying to engage with as a leader or as a business owner? What is it that you want to represent to the world? So those are a few of the tips I'd say. And I'd also just say be courageous. I stand firm on this, and I know there's something I also have to work on. I don't think the world has enough leaders, individual leaders in our own community, and I think we're seeing this in our political landscape at the moment. People who are brave enough to stand firm and be influencers, and not just kind of go with the flow. I think a lot of the people that we always put banners up for, amazing people who are sports people or politicians, are people who are courageous in their day and age. But you don't have to necessarily you don't have to be famous to be an influencer and a leader. You can be where you are and just be courageous and be a leader from wherever you are.
I love that sentiment. And I guess that's the one that then helps us move away from, well, it's okay for you because you've got a successful business, or it's okay for you because people hired you to be the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, or it's actually it's applicable to all of us. It's applicable to those of us who are currently employed in a company and want to position ourselves for the greater good in some way, and people who are out there running their own businesses.
Definitely.
Nice. So, any particular messages then around internal communication? I might be putting you on the spot here, but bringing together this PR and communication idea with your commitment to kind of management and leadership that you mentioned early on. Are there any key things that you want leaders and managers to remember, or that you think they would benefit from learning from the world of business and world of entrepreneurship around how they stand for the brand, whatever that brand might be, whether it's just their individual?
I think it's really important. Obviously, most companies and organizations have an internal communications policy. I think it's also important to be a bit flexible, to be a bit responsive to what's going on out there in the world. I'm not saying necessarily comment on everything or, write a press release about every situation, that major, world international situation that happens. But there are opportunities for companies to engage with their staff, their team. There's certain sensitive things that are happening at the moment that I think are really important that we can talk about within our organizations, and find some safe spaces and opportunities to share messages in a space and respectful way. And I think that should be implemented into all internal communication policies. I think it's really important to be a bit flexible and responsive. I think it's important to also, and I mention it because the landscape is changing in PR and communication so much. The kind of social media policies that a lot of organizations have. Still have friends and associates who work in the government, central government, and the social media policies are really strict. And I think that's really important, actually, to some degree. I think there still needs to be a bit of flexibility to allow people to be themselves on social media. But again, because they're representative of the brand and the organization, we need to remind people internally how, what can they talk about, what, and when, especially if it's affecting the brand image, the market in which the business is doing business in, so to speak. And I also think it's really important to allow all tiers of the company or organization, whether it's a case that you're a big, huge business, multinational, or a small team, allow all members of the team to feel that they're part of the communication channels, and they feel that they can share news and they can share what they think are important to note about the brand, because everybody has different eyes, and too often brand and marketing and PR is kind of left to the PR and marketing team, and that's it, and But it's actually, once every so often, remind the entire organization that they're all part of communicating the brand message, and, what would they like to see, or what have they noticed from an external point of view that could be improved upon internally when it comes to PR and marketing. And I think that's really important, and it's often forgotten and kind of just left to the marketing team and the brand, the PR team, and forgotten. So really important to engage with all levels of the team in an organization.
And that's coming to the fore now, that people, with the rise of social media, people just want brands to be somewhat authentic, don't they? And that's often not, the marketing team isn't necessarily naturally the best place for that, because they will see a certain version of the brand, whereas some of the staff might be really well placed for that. Nice. So you sort of alluded to the idea that you might have something new coming up. Do you want to tell us about it? What's next
I think
for Ronke?
For me, I'm really enjoying the business. I've been getting some really exciting clients I've been working with. So it's really amazing. But I think I've got a taste again for this the kind of not for profit. I've got to take. I
Uh-huh.
feel like I'm seeing a few, especially because I'm a trustee on a few boards. So one in particular still plugged into Islington Voluntary Action Islington. So I'm still kind of part of that kind of not for profit charity sector. There's an element of me in a few years. There's part of me in a few years that knows I'll probably go back if possible to some kind of leadership role in an it could be either in a similar to a chamber of commerce, or it could be something to do with enterprise, small business, but some way of plugging myself back into that I think would be
Mm-hmm.
quite. Yeah, I kind of miss it, and I think because I'm getting so many amazing clients, I realize there's something to be said about small business engagement and entrepreneurialism, especially in this country. And what I often find, Esther, is that when people approach me, they don't always know what PR is or communications, or they
Mm-hmm.
just, usually it's the last thing actually they think about. And so when they realize the value and importance of it, and when I kind of structure a communications plan and a strategy and a marketing strategy, and we start doing the PR campaign and they're getting all this coverage, the impact it can have, especially on a startup and
Mm-hmm.
especially on a woman in business, my women in business clients, the change from when they kind of come to me to the end of a campaign is phenomenal. So I would just be really interested in working with a charity that works with either female entrepreneurs, or I don't know, something where I'm working with entrepreneurs in some way. So it might end up me being a trustee for another charity somewhere else, but there is something there. So I've got to work that out. I'm gonna work it out.
Excellent. And I think there is real value in that, isn't there? Of being an employee and learning from that, and learning from the structures of a large organization, and then working for yourself, and then engaging more directly maybe with individual clients, and then going back into employment. It kind of builds one experience on the other, and one set of knowledge and understanding on the
Definitely.
other. Nicely done. Thank you very much. So, Ronke, is
You.
there anything else that you particularly wanted to share?
I'd just like to say to anybody who's listened and listened to what I said and watched me speak, is that despite all of this, the background and everything I've kind of gone through, I think it's really important to remind people that they can pretty much do or be whatever they want to be, whatever they have in their hearts to be. They should just go for it. I know it sounds like a bit of a cliche, and we mentioned this earlier. People might say it's easy for you, but it really wasn't easy for
Of
me.
course not.
I grew up on a council estate, and it's not me saying it to be like, oh, feel sorry for me. Genuinely, I had to do a lot of kind of really making myself believe in myself, and it proves that wherever you are, you can have anything, and it's so important as women. I just have to keep stressing this because, especially through my career, there's been moments where I know it's because we know when everyday sexism exists, when
Mm.
it happens. I know if I were a man, there'd be certain elements of my life that would be very, very different. But I want to just remind any of the women who are listening and watching that really don't allow any of that external kind of negativity or discrimination to stop you. And if you are faced with discrimination, just be brave, and don't just turn it into necessarily anger. Turn it into action and become whatever it is you're trying to become. So that's what I really want to remind people.